Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to RedDeviller's Premier League 2023-24 season predictions. I'm excited as ever for this Premier League season to start because I think it's going to be an absolute belter. I think there's going to be some surprises happening this year, and I also think it's going to be some top quality football. But before we get into the prediction, if you play FIFA 23, make sure you watch this.
Time for a relaxing sponsored daydream.
Are you tired of having no coins and coming up against teams that are absolutely cracked and better than yours? We'll go over to U7Buy, whose coins are cheap, fast and reliable. You can use the link in the description and make sure you use the code DEVS for a 6% off. Righty-ho, we're going to start off at the bottom, of course, because the hype is where it gets at the top, you know. That's where everyone wants to see who I put where, who I think is going to do what. But in 20th, I think a lot of people are going to have this team at 20th, and I think a lot of reasons why, but I'm going to put Luton bottom, dead last. I don't think they're going to have a great season. I really like the way they played in the Championship, but I think that leap from the Championship to the Premier League is such a massive leap, and I don't think they've signed anyone of note. Now, the other two teams that I do think are going to get relegated next season, one of them in Sheffield. Again, I think they're kind of in that. There's a few teams that are in that bracket between they're too good for the Championship but not good enough for the Prem. And I also think Wolves are going to go down this season. I think they've lost a few players, and I don't think they've got too many players in. I think they struggled a bit towards the back end of last season, and they did well to kind of stay up, but I think this season it's it for them. 17th, 16th and 15th, all kind of close to that relegation battle, but they kind of just survived. I think Everton are going to be down there again. Again, I don't think they've made any good signings, and towards the back end of the season, they got lucky that they didn't go down. They were so close to going down. 16th, I have Nottingham Forest. Again, last season, I think they surprised most people by staying up. I think a lot of people had them going down. I mean, they did sign about 47.5 players or something like that. They signed so many players, and that's usually a recipe for disaster. I think they're going to do enough to stay up. I do like Nottingham Forest. We've also got Anthony Elanga. I think they have made a few positive signings, but not enough to kind of secure them a bit of mid-table kind of justice. They're kind of edging towards that relegation, and I think if they stay up this season, they need to do something more next season to kind of stay up again. And in 15th, we have Brentford. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's a bit low considering how well they played last season, but without having Ivan Toney up top, I think they will struggle and adapt into not having that number 9 up top, who is so pivotal for them and gets so many goals. And I think they might just capitulate a bit this season. They're still going to stay up. I'm still positive they're going to stay up. I think this season, in general, same as last season, the points tally are going to be quite close. Moving on into kind of the lower middle table, kind of pushing their way back up, but they're happy that where they are because they're safe. I think Burnley are going to be here. I don't think they're going to struggle too much this season. I don't know how they're going to play. I mean, Company's got them playing a different way to how they were previously in the Premier League. And I didn't watch too much of them in the Championship. I know they absolutely stormed it, though. They made it look easy. But again, that jump from Championship to Premiership is so large that, to be fair, I think they'll be happy with that. I think as long as they stay up in the Prem for the first season, I think that's always the aim for the teams that come up from the Championship to the Prem. In the first season, they're happy just to stay there. You're not looking on to push for Europe or anything, because that's just not realistic. And I think Burnley are going to be 14th. I think Bournemouth are going to be 13th. They finished 15th last season, and I don't think they played too badly. Again, I think they're still going to struggle a little bit, but I think they're going to do a bit better than they did last season. I think they're just going to get a few more points off the lower placed teams. Now on 12th, they're a bit higher than they finished last season, and I was thinking maybe to put them a bit lower, but again, looking at the other teams, I do think West Ham are going to finish around about here. I think they've lost Declan Rice, which is a massive one. Now thinking about it, I'm thinking about putting West Ham a bit lower because of that, but I've already said it now. They've got 100 million to be spending on players, and they don't look like they're spending it. So in 11th, we've got Fulham. Similar place to where they finished last season. I don't think they're going to have too much of an improvement. I also don't think they're going to fall down any deeper. I think they're a decent team. They played some half-decent football last season. On 10th, we've got Palace. In fact, Fulham and Palace have switched rounds from where they finished last season. Fulham finished 10th and Palace finished 11th, and I've just swapped them round. I've only just looked at that, and I didn't realise. But again, same with Palace. I don't think they've lost too many players. I don't think they've gained too many players, but I like the players. I like Elise. Eze is going to have a fantastic season again, and I think those two can play really, really well. I know they've lost Zaha, but I don't think he's that much of a loss for them. I know he usually gets a good few goals per season, but I think that kind of will focus on the other players. I think Edouard's quite a good striker for them to have as well. He's a good mid-table striker. Ninth, we've got a team falling a bit from grace, but I think Brighton are going to drop down a little bit this season in ninth. They finished 6th last season, but I think with that European status, I think they will struggle a bit more this season, and it looks like Caicedo might be leaving as well. McAllister has also left, so they've lost some big players. I know they're going to get some regen from bloody Sudan or something, and he's going to be an absolute world beater, but I do think they're going to drop down the pace a little bit this season. Next in 8th, we have Aston Villa. Emery seems to be an absolute masterclass in playing the top teams, so they're going to get a few points off them. And then just missing out on the top 6, we have Tottenham Hotspur. Now, I do like the prospect of the new manager. I do think he could do a good job there, but we've been saying this for so many seasons with so many managers for Tottenham. How far can one manager really take them? He's going to have a different philosophy. He done very well at Celtic. He kind of dominated the league, even with a very well-performing Rangers team. He's done very well against. This is with Kane still staying there. I think he will stay there. I don't think he's going to leave the Premier League. I think his only out option was going to be Man United, but that kind of got shut down quite quickly as soon as the window opened. Although they do have Maddison this year, which I do think is going to be a massive improvement, because now Kane might not have to drop so far back, because there's going to be a bit more creativity in that midfield. And I think that's kind of where they were lacking a bit last season. But before we get into the top 6, I'm going to give you a few categories and name players where I think they're going to succeed or fail or whatnot. But the first one, best signing. But the best signing I've gone for is Declan Rice for Arsenal. I think this is going to boost them up a hell of a lot. Declan Rice is such a good player. I know they had Partey last season, but I think he was quite injury prone as well. I think Rice could boost Arsenal up that extra level to where they were last season, even though they played fantastic last season. I think those games where they conceded a few more goals, where they really could have done without it, like the draw in the games, I think Rice is gonna be there to stop that from happening. Flop. It's another Arsenal player. I'm going for Havertz. I don't see where Havertz fits into this team. I think Havertz is a very good player in the right system and in the right position, but I struggle to see where he's going to be playing this season. He's not a number 9. You can't be playing him as a striker. You're not going to be replacing Odegaard. I just don't think he's going to have a great season. Shock player. Now, it's not a new signing, but I think Darwin Núñez is going to have an absolute belter of a season. I think he showed so much promise last season, and people are forgetting that just because you don't play well in your first season, or you don't put up the numbers that you were expected in the first season, doesn't mean you had a bad season. Player of the year, Haaland. I think that's just quite an easy one. I'm going to put it in the same one. Top scorer is going to be Haaland as well. I don't see anyone beating him. Young player of the year. Now, I've gone for Jackson, who signed for Chelsea. He's looked very, very sharp in the pre-season. I think Jackson's going to get a good few goals, and he could be the young player of the season. He's 22, so he's on that brink. I think you have to be 23 or younger to get the young player of the season. Most assists, De Bruyne. Again, I think that's an easy one with Haaland playing. Haaland's going to get so many goals from those assists from De Bruyne. It's hard to see anyone else getting more assists than him. A manager sacked. I'm going for a bit of a rogue one. I'm going Thomas Frank. Now, I know he's got them into the Premier League, but because I think they're going to struggle quite a bit this season, I do think Thomas Frank could be one of the first managers sacked. Luton manager, but I think that's quite harsh in the first season. You can't just expect them to stay up with being such a small squad. But going on to the top 6. In 6th, we're going with Newcastle. I do think the European games will take the toll on the players. I think they had a few injuries last season, and they were only playing like the domestic cups and league. So I do think it's going to have a toll. I like the signing of Tonali, but they've lost St. Maximin as well, which is a bit of creativity up top. Now in 5th, I've got Liverpool. Although I think Núñez is going to have a whopper of a season, I do think that midfield is still quite unbalanced. I don't see them having a DM. Fabinho's gone now, I think, but even so, he wasn't at his best last season. In 4th, I think Chelsea, they're going to grab that Champions League spot again. I think they're going to bounce back from their bad season last season with Poch in charge as well. I can see him having a really good season, and like I said, with Jackson up top, I do think that's what they were missing. Top 3. Oh, it was difficult for me. But I've gone with Man United 3rd. I think they might just miss out on the top 2 purely because we got a few more players in that team that need to gel a bit more. I'm not sure how Højlund's going to do, although that's number 9 that we've been looking for. I don't know how he's going to do in the Prem. Don't think we're quite going to get the top 2, although I do think we're still going to get a cup at least this season. Hopefully, anyway, I'm hoping. But I think we will finish 3rd. For me, I'm going Arsenal 2nd, Man City 1st. I'll just say it now. Man City, they look so unbeatable, don't they? They've lost Gundogan, which I do think is quite a big loss. But they've got so much quality in that team. It's just difficult to beat Man City. I don't think it's anything against Arsenal. I think they've made some wicked signings. Their team was very good last season. With Rice in there, I think they're just going to have less errors than they did last season, which is what lost in the league. But I just think Man City will top it. Let me know what you think about my prediction. If it was awful, if it was pretty much spot on, who you think is going to be the best signing, the flop, the shock, the player of the year, young player of the year, and what you think is going to be the shock event that's going to happen in this season. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and as always, hope you have a good day, great week, and I'll catch you in a bizzle.